All right, how's everyone doing? Everyone awake?
Super.
Okay.
Everyone's good.
All right, so yes, as Omar said, I'm Michael Hattie with the Stephen Holl Architects. Um, I direct fabrication, or title is Director of Fabrication, but really I just run the shop and our detail items at the firm. Um, and yeah, I'm excited to present this to you. Yeah, so the team at Stephen Holl, pretty tight, Stephen Holl, of course, me, Yaning, my right-hand man over here, and then Talia Polet, who did some of the moon geometry, and then Dimitra Sorelia, who's in advisory role, very important at the firm. And yeah, there's number one man, Yaning. All right, so I'm gonna do my best to take you through the design process here. So we actually came here with a project in mind. We're doing a design for a performing arts building at University of Pennsylvania. And yeah, one of the first things that we wanted to look at we wanted to take a little bit of influence from the Furness Library. Stephen's fascinated with the building. It's got red terracotta, sandstone, and brick. It's also got these real crazy like artifacts on the building, like some cool details, gargoyles, like gremlins. Yeah, so this is kind of like our first idea that we threw out. It's yeah, it basically takes some of those elements from the Furness building and imprints them on the walls. And yeah, so that was our first thing, and then we went through a couple of different ideas. But yeah, so this isn't the first time we've done imprints on in our architecture. These are just some examples. Lewis Center, we did a bunch of CNC cutouts in stone. We do lots and lots of wall reliefs and concrete, and then we like to make sculptures. And yeah, our piece for ACAW ended up kind of being more of a sculpture. Yeah, I think in a good way. Yeah, so some more examples. And then we also started looking at it for the exterior of the building. So we did a couple. So this isn't terracotta; it's just a model that I like. But yeah, so these are some concept sketches from Stephen, looking at terracotta for the main material, red terracotta. And yeah, and he started drawing some profiles. We were looking at it as a flush condition with red concrete. And yeah, we did a whole series of profiles. Yeah, and then ultimately we decided that because it's so early in the design, we're only in like 50% SD. It was even earlier than we thought. We wanted to save the exterior for later, because yeah, the facade's changing every 2 seconds. you know how early design is. Yeah, so we started looking at the interior of our theaters. He started drawing these planar elements inside. And then this is kind of ultimately the main inspiration for a piece. So he drew on the left a theater with rotating panels made of terracotta. And then they rotate, and the backside has acoustic properties. And then this is kind of our napkin sketch, trying to put the whole project in a box. Yeah. Yeah, so it consisted of a 30-inch panel, a 20-inch panel, and a glass piece. So we're thinking that we'd have the 20-inch panel as our test piece, and then just a smaller thing to build up to the 30-inch. But it turns out that it was easier for Boston Valley and Andy to just do them all at once. Yeah, and then this is an actual drawing of that, first drawing of it. Yeah, and it turned out pretty close. This is our spoiler photo. All right, so when looking at what the actual geometry of these panels in the theater were, we looked at a few different things. We ultimately came back to a older idea, circa 2018. Stephen is drawing these moons, and we wanted to make them sculptural. So we did a bunch of like little form studies. I think he wanted to mill one out of wood, do one in like stone, but the project kind of got shelved. But in between then, you know, we kind of had some similar language projects. This is one that I did at Art Omai called Oberlin. So this is Robotically Cut Clt. And then this one's just from a few months ago. We made a birdhouse for Brooklyn Botanic Garden. And then, oh, okay, so back to 2018, or no, okay, so this is newer. So we were looking at, you know, possibly doing some lighting with these. And then we also did some more form studies. And ultimately, we went with three different forms from 3 different drawings. So you saw this one before. This is what we use for the bigger panel. This is actually his first watercolor or sketch. And then this is what we did for the smaller panel. And as you can tell, there's a little bit more of a concave or a convex surface to it. And we wanted this to be a little bit different from the other one. So we wanted to play with patina. So we got a black going on. And then for the last one, it's pretty similar to the other one, but it's a little bit less of a slope. I think this one came in between the first and the last one as far as watercolors go. And then as for what the panels in the theater would be, we've used this material before a lot. It's called Plywood. It's bamboo plywood. This is our Maggie Center, and we actually made a bunch of like bowl wall sconces for it from stack laminating. Yeah, and it milled really nice. We thought it'd be really great to work with. But yeah, as some of you guys know, in the shop is popping and doing all kinds of stuff. But in the end, it turned out like the material looked really nice. Okay, the story behind the backside is we wanted to create kind of a cavity diffuser. Looking at the geometry on the backside of the panel, and then also another precedent project from Boston Valley. We thought we could do something where the sound gets trapped, essentially a Helmholtz resonator. But then, yeah, we saw that, or pretty much working with Andrew and Andy, we realized that we had to have this grid behind it. So that's where the idea of kind of an offset from that grid came from. So this is actually a little bit more open area than we probably want. I talked to one of my friends that's a acoustic consultant. He said that probably a smaller pattern would be more effective. In this one, you know, about 50% of the cavities are covered up. But I like this a little bit better sculpturally because you get to look inside, see the pattern from behind, and it's nice. All right. Okay, yeah, so this is the pattern that I was talking about. Kind of a tighter pattern. This is an example from Vanke Center. And then, yeah, we started to look at how we're going to detail these rotating panels. At SHA, we're not, yeah, we do a lot of rotating partitions. It's a big thing. I've spec'd my fair share of Rixson hinges, pretty much every project. But this is one of our most famous ones, storefront for art and architecture. So we definitely had some help getting this assembly together, especially from Boston Valley and Tri-Pyramid. All right, so pretty much consists of a tapered bearing that goes into a housing, and then there's a threaded rod that screws up into a flange that sits into, or that inserts into our piece. So that's the bottom assembly. And then seeing that we had all this fancy hardware, I wanted to have it exposed throughout the middle of the piece. So yeah, so we just left it open, and I think it makes a nice detail moment. And then at the top, it's pretty much just a slide-on, like a friction bearing, or it's not even a bearing. It's pretty much a tube that inserts into a flange, and then there's like an anti-friction disc inside. It turned out fantastic. I'm happy with it. So some more photos of that. And then here's our, in the last few moments, our assembly team. We had some Carnegie Mellon and NC State guy that were pretty instrumental in getting this out at the last minute. And then yeah, we were trying to figure out how to keep these pieces in place. So kind of last minute, we were playing with these neodymium magnets, and we only got them on one side, but it holds the piece in place pretty well in order to get the flush condition. And then glass, pretty much, I wanted to do a glass piece just to kind of show off what we do on a normally at SHA. We're very invested in our glass, especially blown glass. That's kind of my favorite. We make molds in-house, wooden molds in-house for blown glass. And then we also do a lot of cast glass. This is an example from Museum of Fine Arts Houston, and it looks pretty familiar, doesn't it? So we actually took a lot of our hardware ideas from this. We literally stole the hardware. Yeah, okay, and yeah, this is the process behind it. So I 3D printed the negative mold, and then poured silicone into that. And then from that, I made another negative mold out of plasters and silica. And then that goes into the kiln for 4 days, or it depends on the thickness. And then there's it comes up to temperature really fast, and then there's a really long annealing cycle. And then yeah, comes out. And this is that bullseye cullet. It's like shards, the cullet, it's like shards of glass. And then yeah, we ended up putting some LED lights in the cavity, pretty similar to our MFA project. And then this is the hardware that we worked out before with Face Design and Fabrication. They're really good with metal hardware. You know, I'd recommend you check them out. All right, so making of the ceramic moons. Andy gave us some photos of the process here. We didn't really get to see this until like this morning. But so I don't know how much justice I can do from explaining the process. But essentially, he made both a top and bottom mold for the piece. This is it's kind of similar to the glass process, you know, where there's a positive that makes a negative mold. And then then this is the back side of the mold. So I thought this is almost more interesting than the front, you know, because it's got the geometry, but it's sliced up. And then so the back side is lowered onto the top, and he pours into that. And then he's got all these like gating tubes that release air, or I guess he sucks air out of. I know I'm probably butchering explaining your process. And then yeah, this is the wet clay. I think it looks fantastic from that mold. He said that the top just kind of lifts off, which I'm not used to. I usually have to fight to get geometry out of a mold, for at least for glass making. And yeah, and then so and then this is kind of like the glaze. Oh, originally we didn't really want a glaze on this one, and we picked out a white body, but it turns out that the tan body is a lot better. It's got better properties for this type of project, so we ended up kind of faking it. But I think it turned out nice. It's nice and matte. It looks natural. Takes on light well. Yeah, and this is kind of how the piece turned out. Very happy. Hello. All right. Lost my mic there. Batteries. Yeah. Yeah. So this is in the gallery. Come go check it out. Mic problems. And feel free to rotate the panels. It's way smooth. The bearings turned out really well. Hats off to Tri-Pyramid. Yeah, and yeah. So thank you to everyone, especially Boston Valley, John and Andrew Prees, which this wouldn't have happened without all their input. The Buffalo shop staff for the CNC stuff. The all last minute. It's great. Andy Brayman, kind of the father of the pieces. Tri-Pyramid, with all the fancy hardware. Mitchell Bring for bringing us into the project, and of course our host Omar Khan, Carnegie Mellon. Thank you.